Long ago, Earth was a silent world. No humans walked its surface. Forests were vast green oceans, and the seas were reservoirs of light. Life flourished everywhere, wild, untamed, and ancient. It was the Cretaceous period, the age of titans, beasts so colossal they seemed carved by the gods themselves. On land, Triceratops herds roamed under a sun that never knew winter. High above, massive pterosaurs sliced through the air like living sails. Beneath the waves, finned monsters ruled the quiet deep. But on land, one king reigned supreme: the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Tons of muscle, claws, and teeth, a predator as old as instinct itself. It was a savage paradise. Every creature played a part. Every heartbeat had meaning. Herbivores grazed on endless ferns and towering conifers that carpeted entire continents. Predators hunted at dawn, when the light turned dew to blood. It was balance. It was life. It was raw power. Yet, even in that harmony, fate was already in motion. None of them knew that every step, every breath, every glance would be their last in this world. Far above, in the cold void of space, something was shifting. A fragment of rock, born from an ancient collision, began a journey millions of years in the making. It slipped past the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, silent, invisible, inevitable. Earth spun on, oblivious, cradled in blue. Seasons turned, mountains rose, and oceans shifted. The planet was alive, yet fragile. In that vast cosmic dark, a single speck of dust was enough to change everything. And that speck was coming. Nothing could stop it. Beneath the azure sky, Earth simmered with energy. Volcanoes erupted in chains of fire. Rivers of lava carving new lands. Every tremor, every explosion, was a breath from the planet itself. A world in constant flux, where life adapted, grew, and multiplied. Across the sweeping northern plains and vast valleys, Ankylosaurs marched living tanks, their bony armor gleaming in the sun. To the south, Hadrosaur herds forded rivers, their calls echoing through the canyons like ancient songs. In the swamps, packs of Compsognathus darted quick and curious, while agile hunters lay in wait among the ferns. In the forests, flowers bloomed like never before. Insects carried pollen between ancient petals, and the air hummed with the beat of fearless wings. Among the branches, early birds tested the wind. Microraptors glided through the canopy, dark feathers catching the liquid sunlight. Deep in the roots, small mammals scurried in the shadows, watchful and wary, already preparing for a future they didn't know was coming. It was a world of noise and life, of birth and death, a fragile balance hanging over an invisible abyss. Everything worked. Everything lived. A world so perfect only a catastrophe could end it. After traveling millions of kilometers, the asteroid entered Earth's neighborhood. Gravity grabbed it. It accelerated. It swept past the moon. Its path locked onto the atmosphere. The air ahead compressed and burned. The surface began to glow. From the ground, a second sun appeared, growing brighter by the second. Seconds remained before it hit the densest layers. Then it became fire. A burning sphere expanding minute by minute, tearing through the sky at over 70,000 kilometers per hour. A rock 10 kilometers wide, packing more power than any weapon man would ever dream of. Its target, the Yucatán Peninsula, in what is now Mexico. There, where the ocean curved in a perfect arc, destiny struck. Below, the dinosaurs witnessed their final sunrise. No one looked up, no one understood. The sky shifted colors. Birdsong ceased. Animals froze, as if the earth itself held its breath. Then came the light, a flash that blotted out the sun. A roar without an echo, for it outran sound itself. Time stopped. The asteroid crossed the final stretch of sky in a heartbeat, igniting the air like 1,000 suns. Then, it hit. The sea exploded upwards, vaporized in an instant. The impact unleashed over 100 million megatons of energy. The crust folded like sand, rock melted, and the sky caught fire. Within a radius of thousands of kilometers, nothing survived. A shockwave swept the planet. Trees bowed and vanished, incinerated instantly. The air became flame. A wall of water rose from the sea, over a kilometer high. Shrapnel of rock and metal was flung to the ends of the earth. The tsunami scoured the oceans, erasing coastlines for thousands of kilometers. The seas rose, then receded, dragging everything away. The planet screamed. But it wasn't over. Shards of light began to fall from the heavens. Molten rock, ejected by the blast, returned after orbiting the world. Thousands of shooting stars rained down, lighting up the newborn dark. First scattered flashes, then a relentless storm. Night and day merged into a single inferno. Earth was changed forever. Sunlight could no longer pierce the veil. The blue sky became a wound of smoke and fire. The glowing rain fell for hours, then days. Every falling shard started a new fire, a new sea of flames. Forests vanished in a breath. Oceans boiled, releasing toxic steam. Animals sought shelter, but there was none. The air was fire. The ground was glass. Surface temperatures soared past 1,000 degrees. The planet became a furnace, even stone warped, flowing like wax. Flames raged beyond the horizon, fed by wind and pain. The great titans collapsed, choked by the heat. Rivers evaporated. Clouds disappeared. Only the rumble of earthquakes broke the silence of ruin. The ground shook relentlessly, struggling under its fate. The impact left a wound over 20 kilometers deep and 180 wide. The crater lay hidden beneath the sea, but the scar was etched into the earth forever. Shockwaves circled the globe, bouncing off mountains and oceans. Every tremor erased something. A forest, a lake, a breath. Within hours, entire ecosystems were gone. Day turned to pitch black, and in the dark, the ash fell. A soft, heavy dust covering everything. It settled on the seas, on the carcasses, on the open eyes of the giants. It was the dust of the end. Yet, as the world burned, something survived. Underground, in rivers, in burrows, small lives held on. Insects, amphibians, mammals. Forgotten creatures, ignored by the kings of the past. They hid in mud, in hollow logs, in cracks between stones. In that darkness, the future began to take shape. The dust hung in the atmosphere for months, then years. It choked the sun. Day and night blurred into an eternal twilight. Temperatures plummeted. The planet's heat bled into space. Winds carried ash, sulfur, and death. Photosynthesis stopped. Deprived of light, plants died one by one. Herbivores found nothing to eat. When they fell, the predators followed. The Tyrannosaurus Rex, once the ruler of the world, wandered through charred forests, scavenging for scraps. The Triceratops, once a majestic herd, stood alone, slow, exhausted. Hunger consumed them. Cold weighed them down. The earth had become a frozen tomb. Beneath the waves, the collapse was total. Plankton vanished, snapping the food web at its base. Even the ancient leviathans of the deep suffocated in the gloom. The titans didn't vanish in an instant, but faded away in a slow, agonizing crawl toward oblivion. Every species gasped its final breath and took one last look at a dying world. The planet, once a riot of biology, was now choking on ash. Yet, buried beneath that suffocating gray blanket, a faint pulse endured. Deep in the shadows, the heartbeat of a new era began to thump. Seasons bled into decades. Eventually, the dust curtain thinned. A sickly, pale sun pierced the veil, and the eternal ice finally began to weep. Dawn broke over a hushed landscape, illuminating a kingdom stripped of its monarchs. No dinosaurs, just a blank slate. At first, the stillness was absolute until the wind caught a breath. A gentle breeze swept the gray flats, swirling the soot like spectral glitter. That distant sun began to coax warmth back into the ground, while the first true rains scrubbed the scorched crust clean. Moisture seeped deep into the fractured bedrock, hunting for the dormant treasures hidden below seeds that time had almost forgotten. Defying all odds, those tiny capsules of life burst open. Greenery clawed its way back, tentative and delicate at first. Moss claimed the stones. Ferns unfurled amidst charred timber, and brave little blooms stretched toward the returning light. The planet filled its lungs once more. First came the buzz of insects, then the scuttle of lizards and the flutter of avian survivors. But it was the shadow dwellers, the mammals, who stepped into the spotlight to inherit the earth. Where thunderous footsteps once shook the ground, agile paws now darted in silence. The script had been flipped permanently. The reign of the reptile was over. The dawn of the mammal had arrived. The gloom lifted, flooding the heavens with brilliance and restarting the clock of history. Bruised and altered, The world began to mend itself, pushing mountain peaks higher into the blue, while seas shifted their borders and gales sculpted the sands. Invisible artisans crafting a fresh masterpiece. Life joined this new rhythm, not the brute force of before, but something sharper, quicker, and endlessly adaptable. Yet the planet kept the receipts, etching the trauma into bedrock and burying the evidence beneath layers of silence. Every time we hike a ridge or skip a stone across a lake, we are treading on the echoes of that apocalypse. The singular moment when the world held its breath. That cataclysm wasn't just a finale, it was a prologue. The ashes of those giants fertilized the soil for our own story to take root. Eons later, upon that very same stage, a new player emerged, one that could gaze up at the stars and ask, why? A creature built to create, to recall, and to dream. Us. That cosmic impact didn't extinguish the flame. It just changed the fuel. In that split second of devastation, a fresh dynasty was crowned. Perhaps one day, our chapter will close too. The skies may dim, the tides may turn, and the stars will watch from afar. But life finds a way. It doesn't surrender. It evolves, shifts gears, and hits reset. And so, the clock that once froze started ticking again, counting down the seconds until we arrived. It wasn't the curtain call for existence, it was our opening act. If you believe the world's memory deserves to be preserved, follow Eklisu. Here, we give a voice to every story, and wake the silence from its slumber.